Howdy neighbors, David here. And I'd like to start off today, Boondock Stallions, by wishing each and every one of you a happy Halloween. It's finally here, October 31st, All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Eve. You know what? Just run with it. Fuck it. We're gonna go. And so, happy Halloween, everyone. I'm finally making my Ed Gein video. I've been working on it for a while, and all of my previous attempts were complete and utter catastrophic failures. So I scrapped them, and we're going to wing it today, because I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I can do this on the fly. I rock. So I'm not normally this chipper so early in the morning. Luckily, I filmed this the night before, and I'm on my second bang energy drink because I've got to rush this, and I've still got to work out, and I'm looking for a sponsor. You know what I mean? Anyways, so I'm a Texan. More than that, I'm a Southern Texan, and I love it down here. It's awesome. We have a rich, awesome heritage, and I hate people who think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually happened here. More than that, I hate people who live here and think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually happened here. Now, they did film the original 1977 film here, and they did film the remake here, but that's about it. I mean, the reason it's called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is because if they released a movie called the Wisconsin Chainsaw Massacre, nobody would have given a shit. I mean, it's like, it's in Wisconsin. And so, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it sounded brutal, it sounded rough, it sounded gritty, and, I mean, we're Texas, we're nuts, it's what we do. And so, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has just become part of our history, even though it's not actually a part of our history. So, when I say I hate people from here that think that it actually happened, I worked with a guy who doesn't understand that uncles are liars. And I know a lot of people might have issue with that, but I myself am an uncle. I have 9 nephews and nieces and a few great nephews as well. And I can tell you from personal experience that we will lie and exaggerate many of our stories to make us seem much cooler to our nephews and nieces than we actually are. And my coworker hadn't actually figured that out yet, because he swore to me up and down that his uncle was in prison with the Leatherface. The Leatherface, like the real one, the really real one. And I said, that's impossible, because there is no really real Leatherface. It happened in Wisconsin. And he said, no, my uncle wouldn't lie to me. He was in prison with this guy, and he would just sit in the corner and face the wall and breathe heavy and grunt. And literally, that is all the evidence he had that this random inmate was the really real Leatherface. I love that he must have started his life as a gullah calf, and through nurturing and love and lack of education became a gullah bull, and believed that story. And so it's really been sitting on the back of my mind for the last 15 years to make a documentary about this, and there are documentaries about this. Oh my God, if you buy the remake to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they will give you a documentary on Ed Gein, almost like the one that I'm about to give you, about how he's the inspiration for Leatherface. How epic is that? So, and it's not just Leatherface. Ed Gein was the inspiration for Norman Bates from Psycho and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. And as I go through my script, I'll also be sharing a few little inflections and showing you how the movies mirror Ed Gein and his relationship with his mother and his crimes and everything that went down on his farm in Plainsfield, Wisconsin, not Texas. And another thing that adds to the problem down here is that we have tourist attractions. You can go visit the house from the remake. I mean, you can't go onto the property. It's posted outside. Stay off the property, but you can stand on the road, get the house in the background, and take photos. I've done it myself. My sister does it like twice a year. It's like her mecca. And she also goes to the gas station from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's a restaurant now. Awesome, right? And like I said, it's a tourist attraction, and it just feeds the lore that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually happened, when it's just glorified used sets. Not that I'm trying to take away from it. I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of my favorite movies. I mean, I don't think I was supposed to laugh when the dude in the wheelchair was all and I know I did a really bad impersonation, and I'm trying not to spit on my camera because, you know, it's expensive. And so let's delve into Edward Tedward Gein. I'm kidding. His name is Edward Theodore Gein. Could you imagine Edward Tedward? I mean, like, dude, it's like Julia Gulia. That's funny. Anyways, Ed Gein was born in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, not Texas. He is the second of two boys born to George Philip Gein and Augusta Wilhelmine Gein. Gein's older brother's name was Henry George. Now, as far as family life goes, Augusta hated her husband. He was an alcoholic and unable to keep a job. He'd worked as a carpenter, an insurance salesman, and a tanner. If you're unfamiliar with a tanner is one who tans hides to make leather. And I mean, honestly, inspiration for your kids. Am I right? Am I right? High five? No? I'm all alone? Right, fine. Anyways, George also owned a local grocery shop for a few years, but he ended up selling the business, and he and his family left to live on a 155-acre farm in complete isolation in Plainsfield, Wisconsin. Now, Augusta took advantage of the farm's isolation by turning away outsiders who could have influenced her sons. Gein and his brother only left the farm to attend school, and outside of that, Ed spent most of his time doing chores on the farm. Augusta was fervently religious and nominally Lutheran. She preached to her boys about the innate immorality of the world, the evil of drinking, and the belief that all women, except herself, were naturally promiscuous and one of the many tools of the devil. Now, she reserved time every afternoon to read to them from the Bible, usually selecting verses from the Old Testament concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Now, Gein was pretty shy, and classmates and teachers remembered him as being a little strange, having some odd mannerisms, such as seemingly random laughter, as if he were laughing at his own personal jokes. To make matters worse, Augusta punished him whenever he tried to make friends, and despite his poor social development, Gein did fairly well in school, particularly in reading. Now, the mother and her attitude is really reminiscent of Norman Bates' mother from the Psycho series. I mean, you don't ever get to fully flesh out the mom character until the fourth movie when they show you her and Norman pre her death. But from what we get of Norman's version of Norma in Psycho, she hated it when her son was talking to women. She would get jealous and controlling. She referred to these women as whores and harlots. And she ended up killing one of the girls in the shower in the famous Alfred Hitchcock scene from Psycho. And so it's just that attitude of mothers and sons and the wrong kind of upbringing and instability that that very Victorian attitude can have on a child, especially one living in isolation like that. Now, as far as deaths in the family, Ed's father died on April 1st, 1940 from heart failure, and his brother Henry died during a fire on the property. Now, the firemen found the body lying without any asphyxiation or burn marks on him, so they assumed that it was heart failure, but it was later determined that Ed might have in fact been responsible for his brother's death. Anyways, this left Ed and his mother completely alone with each other on the farm. So, after the death of his brother, Gein and his mother were completely alone. Augusta had a paralyzing stroke shortly after Henry's death, and Gein devoted himself to taking care of her completely. She died a few years later at the age of 67. Ed was completely devastated by her death, and the author of his biography said that he'd lost his only friend and one true love, and was completely alone in the world. Now, once again, this really takes you back to the Psycho series and Norman's relationship with his mother. The two of them lived as if there was no one else in the world for years until she started dating somebody, and Norman, feeling abandoned by his mother for her lover, ended up becoming insanely jealous and killing them both, and then being filled with the guilt of murdering his mom, kind of turned her body into a mummy. He basically did taxidermy to it, stuffed it, and spoke in her voice, dressed in her clothes, put on a wig, and lived half of his life for the life that he took from her. And he ended up living in one bedroom, letting the rest of the house go into squalor. And that's exactly what Ed Gein did. He was very faithful, both the book and the movie. Even though the book depicts Norman Bates as an older, middle-aged man, very much like Ed Gein, balding, a little pudgy, the movie decided to just find the most gorgeous actor they could in Anthony Perkins and make him just so beautiful you would never think this guy was the guy that was going to, you know, dress up like an old lady and stab you in the shower. Ree, 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 ree. Probably my favorite scene from Wayne's World. Shortly after his mother's death, he became interested in reading pulp magazines and adventure stories that were particularly involving cannibals and Nazi atrocities. On the morning of November 16th, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. A Plainfield resident reported that the hardware store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building at around 9:30 a.m. The hardware store was closed for the entire day, and some area residents believed that this was because of deer hunting season. Bernice Warden's son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden, entered the store around 5 p.m. to find the store's cash register open and blood stains on the floor. Frank Warden told investigators that Ed Gein had been to the store the evening before his mother's disappearance and that he would return in the next morning to pick up a gallon of antifreeze. A sales slip for the gallon of antifreeze was the last receipt written by Warden the morning she disappeared. And on the evening of the same day, Gein was arrested at a West Plainfield grocery store at the Washoe County Sheriff's Department. So the Washoe County Sheriff's deputy discovered Warden's decapitated body in a shed on Gein's property, hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrist. The torso was dressed out like a deer. She'd been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and mutilations were made after her death. So when they searched the house, this is where most of the inspiration for for Leatherface's house and Norman Bates's house and Buffalo Bill from the Silence of the Lambs house comes into play. They ended up finding whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedpost, female skulls, some with their tops sawn off, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso, skinned from the shoulder to waist, leggings made from human skin, masks made from female heads, Mary Hogan's face in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Warden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Warden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's pot-bellied stove, a belt made from female human nipples, 9 vulva in a shoebox, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, and human fingers and fingernails. These artifacts were photographed at the state crime lab and then decently disposed of. So while questioned, Gein told investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he'd made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to local graveyards and exhumed the bodies of women that he thought looked like his mother. They were recently deceased, and he'd taken their photos from the obituaries and weighted them out and ended up taking their skin, tanning it, and making him a woman suit so that he could literally crawl into his mother's skin. Now, both of these ideas translate across all of horror movies. I mean, Leatherface wore people's skins. That's what he did. Norman Bates, wanting to become his mother, dressed as a woman, dressed in her clothes, in her hair, spoke in her voice, and lived her life. Buffalo Bill wanted gender reassignment. He wasn't a man. He did not believe that he was a male, and he knew that he wanted to be female by any means necessary, and this was early 80s and out of the question, so the only way that he felt that he could make this transition was to kill women and wear their skins. So Ed Gein was originally found unfit to stand trial. He spent a year in a mental institution before being deemed fit, and then he was found guilty of the murder of Bernice Worden, but found legally insane, and so instead of spending prison time, they sent him to Mendota State Mental Hospital. Gein died at Mendota Mental Health Institute due to respiratory failure and lung cancer on July 26, 1984 at the age of 77. Over the years, souvenir seekers have chipped away and graffitied up his tombstone, and they even stole it from the Plainfield Cemetery. It was stolen in the year 2000 and recovered in June of 2001 near Seattle. Now it's in storage at the Washora County Sheriff's Department, and the gravesite itself is now unmarked, but not unknown, as Gein is interred between his parents and his brother in the cemetery. Now, that's pretty much it as far as Ed Gein, his history, and his crimes. And I know I could have probably gone more into detail, but I don't really feel that I need to. There are so many documentaries out there about Ed Gein, and it's devastating that not enough people know that they're out there and that he is the inspiration for some of the best horror in history. So, if you've never seen The Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, watch them and look for the similarities in the characters. Buffalo Bill is an amazing character played by Ted Levine. That's the guy. You watch that movie one time and you'll be running around going, put the fucking lotion in the basket. It's awesome. And if you've never seen the movie Ed Gein, there is a very, very low budget horror movie that came out in the early 2000s. And I say it's low budget, it's very slow in pacing, it's just a documentary. It's just a plain documentary. There's no additional drama, no suspense, no spine-tingling action. And yes, I know that there is another Ed Gein movie that came out a few years later that was a bit more Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they over-glorified it for horror fans. And watch it too, it's great, because it's horror, but it's a little less accurate to what actually happened. If you haven't already, go and check out my Halloween horror movie trivia contest video. That's going down tonight at 7 o'clock. It is a live stream. We are going to have prizes, people. I've got $85 worth of prizes, 3 top spots to win. First prize is $50, second prize is $25, third prize is $10, and if only one person shows up and that one person answers one question right, fuck it. That person is the grand champion, and you're going to win all $85 through Cash App, PayPal, or Facebook Pay. YouTube is in no way responsible for your winnings. If you win, money comes straight from me out of my pocket, and if nobody wins, nobody plays. I'm just going to keep my money and party on, dudes. So, check out the video, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, be excellent to each other. Happy Ed Gein Halloween, people!